What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
First, I don't want to put or table any figures. We have to know exactly what he planned to do. So far, during the campaign, he talked about 10% tariff. Now he's talking about 25%, but putting that in relation with the border. So we'll see what will happen in the next few weeks. But of course, tariffs on all exportation means thousands of jobs that can be lost.
So that's François Legault from just a little earlier today, reacting, of course, to he's talking about in there is Donald Trump, who yesterday decided to let people know in Canada and Mexico, you know those 10% tariffs I talked about? I'm talking now about 25% tariffs, and all of a sudden everyone went into a bit of a kind of craze, I guess, trying to figure out, oh my God, what if he actually follows through? So Jim, a lot of people also realize a lot of what Donald Trump says and what he later does are not the same thing, but there's enough concern here that there's an emergency meeting in the House of Commons tonight.
Well, absolutely, and the thing is, and Mr. Legault seems to have put his finger on it, you don't really know what you're dealing with. I mean, let's put this in context, shall we, Aaron? We're talking about Donald Trump, President-elect of the United States, who announced on social media on the eve of one of the biggest retail periods in North American, the economic year in North America, that he's slapping 25% tariffs on goods and services coming from Canada, from Mexico, and from China. A little over 3 weeks ago, Donald Trump was swaying on a stage, miming having oral sex with a microphone. Okay? If you don't believe me, folks, you can Google it. I only raise this, Aaron, for people to understand that on the one hand, you and I may end up, by the time this week is over, saying, whoa, who knew that Donald Trump was going to announce a 40% tariff? Yeah. I didn't know there was as big a wave of illegal immigration going into the States from Canada as from Mexico, but apparently that's what Donald Trump said. I didn't know those illegal immigrants were also riding a tsunami of fentanyl into the U.S. Never heard that one before, but once again, Donald Trump is saying, so it's true. But here's the thing, certainly in terms of Quebec, and trade is a two-way street. I don't want to sound, like Otto the obvious guy, but please don't think the governors of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Michigan, all the border states, and beyond, are kind of freaking out right now because I'm sure they got gobsmacked as much as the rest of us. And it works both ways. On the one hand, the tariffs would make our goods and services more expensive. But on the other, first of all, just the fallout from this announcement has led to a devaluation of the Canadian dollar, which I hate to say it, folks, but if you're a manufacturer, that's good news. It costs less for them to buy our stuff than it would usually. But all that said, this is the kind of thing we have to confront. Yeah, have a meeting with the premiers and the prime minister. And, we got Pierre Poilievre pumping his chest saying, we need a plan B. So what? We don't exactly know what we're dealing with. We don't even know if this guy is going to say the same thing tomorrow. And more importantly, we need information from D.C. We don't need, a little preaching to the choir, a little political drama here. We're going to have a meeting tonight in the House of Commons, a virtual meeting tomorrow. It sounds like the plot line for some goofy, Hallmark holiday flick. There were 10 premiers who couldn't agree on anything, but then they had to work as a team. They're not going to work as a team. They've all got their own agendas, and they all are going to go in there tomorrow saying the same thing. What the hell is going on? And the answer is going to be the same. We don't know. At least we don't know yet. But it's the uncertainty. It is and it's not just on this side of the border, Aaron. I mean, there are a lot of manufacturers, a lot of companies, a lot of states that rely on this country for much of their trade balances. And here's Donald Trump. I don't know what inspired him last night. I don't know what else he might have been doing while he was sitting with his phone on Truth Social. But here he is just saying, yeah, this is going to happen, even though, it was 10%, but no, it's going to be 25%. This is what we got.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was a rigged election. I'm saying people voted with their eyes wide open for this guy. This is what you've got. Get used to it. Remember, we're not even close to being sworn in yet. We're not even close to seeing where exactly this government's going to go, but this is where we are already. Two of the biggest trading partners of the United States thrown into uncertainty by some guy probably tweeting from his toilet last night on trade policy, which may or may not last until the end of the week.
So,
I hate to say it, yeah.
I never thought I would say this, but I'm going to say it now, that I will, with respect to what Donald Trump said about the border, I will defend something here, and about the drug war, which I was not all that aware of until a couple of weeks ago when I started reading up on this. Number one, Jim, we were so focused on people coming across the U.S. border into Canada, right, at Roxham Road and everywhere else. We didn't realize, and we found this out not that long ago, that lots of people come to Canada, and it would seem East Indians, perhaps, by the thousands, and then try to cross into the U.S., And we found out, of course, that family, sadly, tragically, that died trying to do exactly that, crossing that border in Manitoba, right? This is happening a lot, and that was something that Trump raised here. And the other part of this about the drug war, now, again, this is only a story from a couple of weeks ago. I think we thought, yes, people die, sadly, tragically in this country from drug overdoses, but we're not suppliers, are we? And then you read that in BC, the biggest drug bust in Canadian history, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, drugs that would be made, created here, and then exported. So I get that, but the thing that I think, with respect to what Donald Trump is asking, it's a win-win, Jim. If we go ahead and, look at the drug business in this country and start doing something about it, or more than we're doing right now, and the same thing at the border where we're preventing those people from using Canada as a stepping stone into the U.S., that's good for Canada and apparently good for the U.S.
Well, absolutely. If we're presuming that the tweet that was, or whatever, the Truth Social that was emitted last night has the same weight as a legal document, and that's where it's going to end. You know and I know that is probably not where it's going to end. You know and I know that even if people start falling over themselves in the next couple of weeks, there is going to be something else, and that's the real problem with dealing with this regime.
Yeah.
In terms of fentanyl, I knew it's been going through. I didn't know it was going through in these massive amounts.
Yeah.
But the other thing I had heard was people were complaining that a lot of fentanyl stuff was being produced in China and being transshipped either into the U.S., perhaps into Canada, and into Mexico. But all that said, Aaron, once again, we don't know which way the wind is going to be blowing by the time Donald Trump wakes up the next day. This is not, a cliche. This is experience talking from his last presidency. We don't know. So we'll wait and see. Maybe he'll rescind the whole thing tomorrow. I don't know. But what I do know is that if you ever wanted a reminder, something we don't know about, maybe that's the most instructive part, of just how much our economy is utterly dependent, life-savingly dependent on the U.S., we're finding it out right now.
No question. All right, let me move from that. I want to touch on both these things. Number one, you want to talk about the pedestrian future of St. Catherine Street. Jim, it's exciting. They reopened the street for a couple of months, I think.
Yeah, and now apparently they're going to, because remember we were talking about the presser they canceled. I said they canceled it because they realized they were going to have their feet put to the fire on the whole riot thing on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to have a presser. Now they're going to have a presser tomorrow. In the meantime, TVA, is reporting that local business people are up in arms because they were never consulted about this. They're saying they're going to turn it into a pedestrian mall, which is entirely possible. Because why not? It's already on life support. Why not just put a pillow over St. Catherine Street's face and get it over with? I remember I was attending a meeting in Montreal. I was in downtown Montreal late last month, and I was walking through, and I crossed St. Catherine Street, and it was, a chantier, but what was crazy was I could tell just by the, I said, man, that's a weird-looking width. It was, of course, the width of one car lane and a bicycle path, and I'm thinking, this is so not going to work. So now that I'm hearing, well, if they want to turn it, into a pedestrian mall or whatever, good luck with that. I wish you all the very best, but make sure that when those sidewalks are so wide, they're wide enough that if it happens, the plywood covering up the empty storefronts on St. Catherine Street should suddenly fall into the street. There'll be enough room for people to get out of the way, because I guarantee you that is absolutely what is going to happen. I have never seen a more direct, deliberate, and focused attempt by any administration to really uproot and conduct a social engineering experiment with what used to be an economic artery of this city, and now, quite frankly, is quite literally a shadow of its former self. So, yeah, good luck. It'll be nice. I'm looking forward to seeing the artist conceptions of the families happily traipsing down St. Catherine Street, even though they probably won't have anything to visit or buy or look at. But all that said, it's not about the result. It's about the dogma. That's what Project Montreal has always been about, and that's what we're going to see again this week.
All right, listen, I was going to ask you about what we started with, this report in La Presse about kids and just how, things have changed where kids now, even like kindergartners, grade oneers, haven't learned basic skills in school. I just wonder, you want to weigh in real quickly on that?
Absolutely, and I've been talking about this in different manifestations in the past, Aaron. The fact is, and maybe I sounded a little too Old Testament, but the fact is, ever since those screens wound up in our hands, we have literally changed. I'm not talking about your personality. I'm not talking about your view of the world. I am talking about the way you think. I am talking about the way you exist. It has a huge effect, even on those of us who grow up with no internet. Imagine being exposed to nothing but that. And now we're hearing kids who are in elementary school don't even know how to in daycare, can't even zip up their own jackets.
Yeah.
You know what? That is not a coincidence. And please get worried about this, because it's just going to get worse.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you.